Dates for a cause, inspiring you to try our medjool dates and its succulent flavours. With 100% profit supporting a charitable cause. Place your orders now at minhajwelfare.org. A beautifully designed gift which recycles into your own giving box.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone in today's podcast. I'm Usman Rafi, your host today, and today we are going to be discussing a very important and very interesting topic that we feel is being neglected. We're going to be talking about the mental health, the mental well-being, and we have a very wonderful guest today with us, Somia Zaman, who has been working as a mental therapist for almost 13 years, and she is going to be with us and talking about this topic. And now, let's talk. You know, today I was thinking about a friend of mine, and he's very strong. He's very strong physically and goes to the gym and, deadlifting and weightlifting all the time. Very strong. And he was telling me, Usman, I am very strong physically and mentally. Nothing can disturb me. Nothing at all. And I was like, is that even possible? There must be something that mentally disturbs you. So what do you think, Somia, about this?
So you mean whether there's a link between physical health and how strong you are physically and mentally?
Exactly. I mean, this mental, health and mental well-being, is there a concept that we can talk about or we can discuss? What is it? I'm always wondering, because it's a topic that we never talk about, we never discuss. What is it about?
Well, I think firstly, there isn't necessarily a link between physically how strong you are and whether you're strong mentally. I think the two, although they do go hand in hand, they are also quite separate as well. So I think mental health is something that we all have. So whether you think that you have mental health or not, it's still something that you have with you, that you carry around with you all the time. And this is really just in your everyday emotions, how you feel. So sadness, happiness, whether you worry, whether you feel a little bit anxious.
So the emotions, we can say, are the mental health? Yeah,
so mental health is how you're feeling on a very emotional or a very psychological level. And that's something that we all have. If you've got a brain and you've got a mind, which we all have, then you have mental health.
Of course, right. So you are saying that emotions, being sad, being happy, or stressful or depressed, this is all the mental health. And this is something, as I mentioned before, we don't talk about this. So there is a relation, there is a connection between the physical body and the mental health, is it?
Yes, there's definitely a link between the two. So we know that how you feel on a physical level does impact how you feel on a mental level, and vice versa. So how you feel mentally will affect you physically. And you know that just because, for example, when you're not well, physically, okay, how your body feels on a physical level when you're ill, when you've got a cold, etc. You feel low, don't you? You feel down, you feel a little bit maybe upset that you can't go out, do your normal thing. So in that sense, there's a link there, isn't there? And then if you look at it the other way, if you're feeling low, anxious, sad, worried, that can impact you on a physical level as well, because then you maybe don't feel like doing things.
Right.
So you maybe feel a bit more tired, you don't really want to socialise with your family, friends. So you can see the link between the two, definitely there's a link there.
Right. So it does make a difference if you are healthy physically, you are taking care of yourself physically, it will definitely have an impact mentally.
I would say in a lot of situations that looking after yourself physically does to some degree have an impact on how you feel mentally. Not 100%, because there's always going to be other factors that contribute towards how you feel emotionally. But physical health does play a really important role.
So when does this you could say problems or these illnesses start? I mean, is it when we are adult, when we have gone through after 30, 40 years, or is it just when we're born?
Good question. I think a bit of both. So you can certainly go through your life and be quite okay, and then something might happen in your life as an adult, whether it's a stressful life experience or, you know, a death, bereavement, that kind of thing. All these things affect us, right? And that's when things might change for you on a psychological level or an emotional level. But for other people, things may start earlier than that. So they might start earlier on in life. They might start maybe when they are in school or college, depending on what's going on for them in their life. So every person is different. But I would say that usually some kind of significant life event or something happening in someone's life is usually what can trigger off mental health related issues or emotional related issues.
Right, so it can be different ages, so that doesn't mean if a little kid has a problem, we just try to ignore, or we just say he's just, you know, acting, or he's just a drama queen or whatever, or drama king. So we really should, give attention to that person who is going through that. So we can get him or her out of that, even if it's a child or even if it's an adult. So everyone can have that problem, right?
Of course. And I think the earlier on in life that people experience problems or difficulties, it's even more important to address them then. So you talked about children, and children, especially now, are suffering more and more with things like anxiety, self-esteem related issues, low mood, these kind of things. It's becoming more and more common now for youngsters these days to suffer with these problems. And so children are not protected necessarily from experiencing mental health problems. Children have these problems too. And I think it's really important for parents, people in the community, professionals to know that this is happening, and to obviously help these young people in the best way possible, so that they're able to learn at a young age how to manage their emotions and their psychological well-being.
You know, I think that's absolutely right what you've just said. The young people, you know, when you are becoming an old adult, there are some physical changes and there are some mental changes that you have in your body. And of course, your emotions are on peak, and sometimes you're very happy and sometimes you feel very sad for a small little thing. And that's the moment when our adults, our parents, our teachers, tutors, they should see that this guy or this girl, she is going through something and we should help her. But in reality, that doesn't happen most of the time. They go through that situation themselves. They have to fight. I would say about myself, I have gone through so many things that I've never spoken about because I'm scared to talk about with my parents maybe, or with my sisters or with my brothers. So I think in our community, especially, Desi community, Pakistanis, Indians and Bengalis, we have this fear. We're scared to share things. And something that I've really seen, I don't know if you have seen this, that we don't express our feelings, do we?
No, particularly not when it comes to mental health. But I don't think that's just in the Asian community.
Yeah.
I think a lot of communities still have a stigma attached to mental health.
Yeah.
I've worked in mental health for 12 plus years.
Lord.
And a lot of my clients are not Asian clients.
Right.
So I can say confidently that a lot of communities have this stigma still attached to mental health. So although in our culture, yes, you're right, it's a problem, it's not very well understood, but the same is across the board, I would say. So it's a community-wide issue, I would say, not just an Asian issue.
I have a friend, and he says something very strong and very powerful, which really touched me. And he was telling me, we love our parents, we love our brothers and sisters, but do we ever say that to them? Do we ever express that love that we have in our mind or in our heart, whatever you say? Do we even, you might have seen these Gora peoples, I would say, these other communities, that whenever they leave from home or whenever they come home, the way, they say goodbye, or they say, I love you, mom, or I love you, dad. We just say Khuda Hafiz and we God. We don't hug very often, or we don't express ourselves. I think that really makes a difference in our mind, don't we?
It makes a massive difference, because if you go right back, to when you're a child, children have emotional needs, and those emotional needs are things like hugs, kisses, being told that you are loved, all these things.
Yeah.
So as well as your parents or people, in your household as you grow up giving you what you need physically, like food, clothes, a roof over your head, all of those things are important, but so are the emotional side of growing up. And you're right, it's not always expressed openly in the Asian culture, but it's something that should be expressed.
Yeah, definitely. When I joined, when I came to the UK, and I never knew this about myself. And a friend, he spent some time with me and the other day, and he goes, "Are you an introvert?" And I said, "What does that mean?" A person who keeps feelings inside and doesn't say. Yeah. I think a lot of young people go through this phase, and even then, because if they haven't come out that phase in this time of the age, they're not going to come out later on. They will still be introvert, and they will never become extrovert, because they don't express, they don't share, and everything that they're going through, it keeps in their mind, and then they start being depressed and stressful. So I think, as you just said, we must express. So what kind of, as you're an expert and you have worked for so many years, what kind of illnesses do we have?
So varied, I would say, but common things include things like low mood, depression, anxiety, maybe like people lacking a lot of confidence as well, which is more common now. But what you said as well, so lacking confidence in sharing how you feel, talking about how you feel, and not being able to express that is something that people really struggle with, and they keep a lot of it inside.
Right. So these could be the signs for someone to be introvert, that they're not sharing, they're not expressing.
Possibly, yeah, and also generally keeping themselves to themselves.
Yeah.
So not wanting maybe to socialise much, with family or friends.
Right.
Maybe they kind of keep themselves in their own room quite a lot. Yeah, so they might have their own space where they feel safe and they kind of keep themselves in
that
there.
happens a lot in Asian communities. That in the first place we don't do any family plannings, and then we have a lot of kids, and then of course you can't give them the same, or you can't give them as well you try to give whatever you have, and of course sometimes it doesn't reach the expectations, and of course the kids, they want their space, they want their things, and they have to share. And that also creates some kind of anxiety inside, some kind of I would call it prison feeling that you can't do, or she can't do, or he can't do something that he wants to do.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in Asian communities, I would say. So Somia, you've gone through so many years in this field. Share an example of a client that you might have, and he has or she has a mental problem. What do you say?
So that's, I always feel a little bit overwhelmed when people ask me that, because I've worked in the field for so long, so I've seen so many people. But one particular person that stands out is a lady that I saw, and this is quite a good example actually, just to demonstrate what we've been talking about. So a person that I've worked with, this particular client that I saw is actually a good example of what we've just been talking about in terms of how your early years can have an impact on you later on when you're an adult. So this particular person that I worked with, she was quite successful in her work. She had her own family, her own home, all the kind of things that people, tend to strive for really. But she suffered with really bad low self-esteem. So she didn't have much confidence at all. When she was at work, she would be really quiet in meetings, introvert like we were talking about. She'd keep herself to herself, that kind of thing. She, didn't really mix much with her husband either. Her relationship was starting to be affected because they just wouldn't really interact much. And on the outside, she appeared to be this really successful person, but inside, she was just every day suffering with low self-esteem and not having much confidence. And with that came things like anxiety about going out, about talking to people, all these kinds of things. Anyway, when we explored with her maybe where some of her issues came from, she talked a lot about how when she was younger, her mum used to talk a lot about her weight.
Oh.
Especially as a young girl, she was probably maybe 12, perhaps. Her mother always used to tell her that she needed to be slimmer, more skinnier. And I think her mum even put her on a diet.
All right.
Yeah, when she was like 12 years old, which must have been really hard, for a 12-year-old. So she kind of grew up almost with not much confidence really, physically, but also mentally. So I suppose the way in which we helped her overcome her problems were giving her space really to talk about how she felt, about her early life really. We didn't blame her mum for anything. We just kind of tried to understand maybe why her mum did that. She needed that time really just to kind of talk about why this happened. So it wasn't about blaming her mum, it was more about her understanding where her low self-esteem and confidence came from, and just giving her the space to talk about that, because as we talked about before, it wasn't something that she ever shared with anybody, so she kind of kept those feelings inside. We also helped her very much with practical everyday things, like for instance how to be more confident in meetings at work, so what kind of things to say, practicing at home, maybe in front of a mirror, this is what I'm going to contribute to the meeting tomorrow, so that she wasn't almost put on the spot. She kind of knew beforehand what she was going to go into work meetings or, you know, interactions with work colleagues with. So it was a mixture of very practical solutions, everyday situations, but also giving her space to talk about, you know, how she felt about the past.
I think this is something that Asian parents don't do. Talk.
Yeah.
We don't talk. I mean, our parents don't talk. Our elders don't talk. They just decide and tell us, this is for you, we have decided this for you. You're going to become an engineer, you're going to become a doctor. And I'm happy that you have become a mental therapist. You chose on your own, did you?
Yeah. I always enjoyed psychology at school and college. It was one of my strongest points. So yeah, it was kind of a natural thing for me to go into that field, because it was what I was strong at college.
So what about Ramadan, that we're now in Ramadan, and of course, is it hard for you, is it?
Ramadan?
Yeah.
Do you mean work-wise? Or?
Work-wise, and you know, do you have to be all day in your clinic and you know, attend patients and this and that? Is it easy or hard?
It can be challenging, because I guess when you're fasting, you need, I guess, food and drink for concentration, right? Like, you need that to help you get through the day. So especially in the first few days, I'd say it can be difficult, especially if I've got a full clinic. Yeah, if I've got maybe a couple of people in, then it's not so bad. But say if I have like a full day, it can be hard to concentrate for a whole day when you're not eating or drinking. But you know, the body is amazing, it gets used to, you know, it adapts, doesn't it, to whatever you put it through. So I think after a few days it tends to get better.
So do you think this being hungry all day, you know, without drinking or eating anything, can damage our brain?
Not at all, not if it's temporary.
Okay.
No. We obviously know, don't we, that fasting has a lot of benefits for your physical health. But I think if you did a search, you'd find a lot of research on how fasting can be good for your mental health as well. Yeah, and your spiritual health. So I think it has a lot of benefits, fasting.
You know, in Ramadan, one thing that is very amazing or wonderful, I would say, is, you know, in Ramadan we fill our tables, our dining tables, with food and everything. But that's not the best part. The best part is that we all sat together and we talk. Yeah. And we share. Before the iftar, of course, we're waiting for the food, and when food comes, we all jump on the food and whatever you see, you grab it and eat it. Of course, but that environment that we get in Ramadan, I think throughout the year, it's quite hard, you know, to be all together. Maybe in a birthday, or you go to somewhere, you know, you go to meet someone and then you sit all together. But Ramadan, I think, is something that really boosts us mentally as well, doesn't it?
Well, it's that community element, isn't it? And a lot of research has been done that shows that people who suffer with, for example, mental health problems do actually recover better if they have a community behind them. And that's not me saying that, that's research has actually shown that, like studies that have been done. So there's a really important element to the community and recovery, you know, particularly from a mental health perspective. Yeah.
All right. Okay. That was a really good discussion. And I'm glad that I have you who I can, you know, share these things with. I think we all should have this kind of I could say a moment or a time for ourselves that we can share, we can talk, and of course a therapist. That's the best thing to have. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to be disturbing you in future as well for all my mental issues that I have. And of course, this is something that we should all consider in our life, that we all can have these problems, kids, adults, even old age people, and if we know, when you're learning to drive, you know that the green light means that you can go and the red means you can't go. Yeah. Once you know the law, the next time you're going to get fined if you don't apply on it. So now that we know that we have to talk and we have to share, we have to work on it. So our parents, our adults, our kids, our siblings, they feel comfortable with us. Yeah, isn't it?
For sure. You've talked about the older generations and them not talking and not sharing, and again, it's not their fault, it's just something that's passed down, isn't it?
This happens a lot, our parents complain that my son doesn't come, my daughter doesn't come to sit with me or to talk with me. But of course, I think there should be something in the background that is not being seen. Why is this kid behaving like this? Yeah. That happens a lot in our community, doesn't it?
Of course, yeah. And I think it is that element of talking and sharing isn't always encouraged in our culture. And I think it's important for people like me and you to break that cycle and to change that. So change it not only for yourself, but also for the next generation, for your children, for their children, etc., so that it becomes a normal thing, to talk and share how you feel, just like you would if you broke your arm or your leg.
Right.
I guess the only difference with that is you can see that, but with emotional struggles you can't see them.
Yeah.
And so often when you can't see something, you don't always understand it.
Yeah.
But it's important to share and talk about it so that people do understand it, and it becomes normal.
Right. So I think we should talk. All right. Thank you very much once again. And do you want a coffee? No. All right.
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم
In times when the most basic needs to survive become the most uphill struggles of life, giving charity becomes even more vital. At Minhaj Welfare, we know, apart from relief, charity must also heal. We realise, for self-sustainability, charity must also transform. We believe in education. Discover the healing benefits of giving charity. Visit minhajwelfare.org and donate today.